I'm your family, okay? That's all that matters. I nodded, but the sinking feeling inside my stomach hadn't gone away. I'd asked Luke to drop me off at home. Jacob and Ellie were coming back from Jacob's parents, and I needed some alone time. I'd taken the USB stick with me. I had a feeling Luke would obsess about it, and that wouldn't be healthy for him or his family. I, on the other hand, was single and lived alone. I had all this time and energy to go crazy. Luke put his hand on my shoulder. I mean, I know all of this feels strange, but let's be honest. Mom and Dad have always been a little insane. He tried to smile, but I saw a twitch in his eye. He knew he was losing control, but tried his best to keep me calm. I was 28 years old, and my brother still wanted to protect me. Even after moving out at only 17, he always stayed close and made sure we kept in touch. It made me wonder how much of the bad things in our childhood he hid me from. Older siblings really don't have it easy sometimes. Luke, I'm fine, I said. But I might take a little break from visiting Mom and Dad for a while, just to wrap my head around things. As to the third child... Look, no, Max, I think I let my imagination roll. The kid could have just been a neighbor or a friend's child. Oh, yeah, for sure. I still don't like that they used us for some weird audition like that. I never thought Mom and Dad were fame seekers. I nervously laughed. Yeah, same, but try not to worry about it too much, okay? But, of course I did, just like him. We were stupid. My brother was trying to protect me, and I was trying to protect him, but in reality, both of us were already too deep into a mystery, and neither of us would let go of it. As soon as I heard Luke's car drive off, I grabbed my laptop. There were two things I needed to do. First, I would start with the A tapes to see if there was another child in there with us. Second, I would watch enough of the B tapes to understand a little bit better what they were about. The first thing made me nervous. The second made me ill. As I skipped through the A tapes file, I realized something. All the memories I had of my childhood came from what was filmed back then. I suppose it's not that odd. Our brains aren't that evolved yet as kids. We mix the information we have with bits of memory and believe that we actually remember it all. It was all fairly normal. A trip to the zoo, birthday parties, school plays. I kept skipping until I reached 1996. A short fragment of Christmas. With me, Luke, my parents, some other adults, and a baby. I didn't recognize those other adults. It might have been one of their kids, but my mom was holding it. I paused the tape right there and I switched to the B file to look for the same date, December 1996. Even while I was just skipping through scenes, my stomach rumbled. I still didn't understand how it was possible. A few images and sounds couldn't possibly evoke such a physical reaction. Maybe it was just my nervous system warning me about something. I tightened my fist and continued. No puking before I have some answers. 1996, Lay's First Christmas. It was set at a graveyard. It must have been evening time, somewhere in between light and dark, but the contrast kept changing, making it difficult to focus on any specifics. Then, two gravestones came into the frame, but I couldn't decipher the names or dates, although one of them seemed to say Montreux, our last name. I swallowed it and I kept watching. An adult I couldn't identify brought the child into the frame. Lay, I guessed, and the adult couldn't have been my dad, although it was hard to say. He laid the baby down on the ground in front of the gravestones. All of a sudden, the light became crazy bright, almost burning my eyes. I looked away for a second and the image had changed. What I saw now was our family. Mom, Dad, Luke, me, and Lay. and we were sitting on a blue sofa, and behind us stood a red Christmas tree. It seemed as if all the colors were reversed. Luke and I kept moving and looking in all kinds of directions, but Mom and Dad and Lay were staring right into the camera. No movement. Mom and Dad were both grinning, and they almost looked proud. Then Dad's face turned serious, and the video stopped. My heart was racing. There is no show or movie I could ever imagine who would want this as an audition tape, but I'd known that from the first few ones already. Somehow, I still tried to find a logical explanation, though, a reason why my parents were doing this. Yes, they'd been weird sometimes, but they were still my parents. I didn't want to believe that there was something utterly wrong with them, or imagine the kind of horrible people they were involved with. At this point, I believed it to be some sort of satanic cult. My head joined my fast-racing heart. It felt like something would break out of my skull any second, so I closed the B file. When the Christmas video of File A opened up, I watched a little more of it. It felt ironic, but almost comforting to watch that regular-looking Christmas. Luke and I were playing with presents, the adults were drinking and laughing, and then I saw a familiar face that didn't look as happy as the rest. My grandpa. I don't know why I hadn't thought about that before. My grandparents moved away when we were really young, and not long after that, my parents broke off contact with them. Or the other way around. We didn't even go to my grandmother's funeral. I took a picture, and I sent it to Luke. He called me back an hour later, his first words being, "I found him." "Who?" "Who do you think? Grandpa. He lives in a nursing home in a place called Wadden." I thought, "Luke, whoa, stop. You found Grandpa? How?" I could hear him grinning through the phone. "He has Facebook." I was quiet for a second. "Did you text him?" "No. I thought we might pay him a visit. I looked up the town he lives in. It's a 4-hour drive. I already took time off work. Maybe you could say you're sick, or..." I didn't even have to think about it. "Yeah, okay, let's do it." "What does Jacob think of all this?" I asked the next day as we were sitting in the car. Luke didn't answer for a while. "I didn't tell him everything. Said the video was a strange art project of our parents, and that I'm in a fight with them. That's about it." "And about you leaving for 2 days?" "Visiting our grandpa, who we haven't seen in 2 decades. I didn't question him further. It was his relationship, not mine, and it was probably for the best if fewer people got involved in this mess. We arrived at the nursing home around noon. A friendly nurse guided us to the garden where an old man was sitting on a bench. I knew it had to be my grandfather, but it was strange to see how much he had aged, especially after I'd seen him in the video only the day before being more than 25 years younger. All of a sudden, I started getting nervous. Last time this man had seen us, we were children. He probably wouldn't even recognize us, and I didn't know how clear he was still in his head. As we approached, he looked up and smiled. "Lay!" he called as he looked at me. "No, Mr. Montreux, this is your other grandson," the nurse calmly said. "It's Luke and Max, Grandpa. Do you remember us?" His expression changed immediately. At first I thought it was anger, then disappointment, and finally sadness. Luke and I were lost for words. We had planned all the things we would say and ask during our drive, but now my mind was blank, and from the appearance so was his. Grandpa gave us a sad smile. "You boys have grown so much, Luke. You more than your brother, but still." "Which brother?" Luke asked bluntly. "Max or Lay?" Grandpa shot him a confused look. "He slips in and out. At times his mind is sharp, but often it's more foggy," the nurse explained. "Great," Luke mumbled. "I'm gonna go inside and let you chat. I'm sure you missed your grandkids very much, Mr. Montreux," the nurse said in a friendly tone. "No! Don't leave me alone with him!" Grandpa said as he looked at Luke, who was just as confused as I was. Do you happen to have a phone number or any other contact information from his other grandson? I asked the nurse. She shook her head. Unfortunately not. He brought him here a little while back, and he comes to visit at times, but it's hard to reach him. All because of that silly show, Grandpa whispered. I got closer and I sat down next to him. He didn't seem to mind me. The show he was cast for? I asked, gently placing my hand on his shoulder. He looked at me in the eyes and nodded. I didn't know it would follow him like that. Back then, I didn't know. He shouted that last part, and I instinctively removed my hand. Mr. Montreux, all is fine. Lay is doing well, the nurse calmly spoke. I'm sorry, boys, but I think now is not a good time for him. She helped Grandpa get up from the bench, but before he was standing, he looked at me. Not your brother. Your cousin. I raised that boy after... He didn't finish the sentence, but instead looked at the ground and sadly whispered, Your parents should have died, not his. So, what now? I asked when we were back in the car. Luke let out a big sigh. We need to find Lay, who I guess is our cousin and not our brother, so at least that's something. Maybe we can ask around and see if someone knows him. The town isn't that big, and he was some kind of child star apparently. I looked through the window at the gray buildings we were passing on our way to town center. Did you see the look on his face when he said our parents should have died? I asked. Luke nodded. They were probably the reason Lay got cast. After they didn't want us, they tried with him instead, maybe after his parents died? You don't think Dad killed one of his siblings and spouse to get their child for a TV show, do you? I asked, half jokingly. Luke opened his mouth to speak but closed it again. After a while, he said, Can you text Jacob and let him know we arrived? I forgot. Sure, I said, quickly followed by, Shit. This shouldn't have made me feel so scared, but I knew something bad was about to happen. He sent you a text an hour ago. Says your parents just randomly stopped by. You know how much I hate when they do that. Luke's eyes opened wide. Call him now, he shouted. I gulped. It's going straight to mailbox.